Welcome back to Animator Artist Life. Today we're going to rig a car with my favourite rigging tool, Advanced Skeleton. We will add our joints, set up controls and add cool bouncy dynamics. Stick around till the end where I show you how to set up a simple steering system for any vehicle. Advanced Skeleton is free for non-commercial use or purchase a freelancer license. It's well worth it. I've bought this simple car model from TurboSquid for the purposes of this demo, so let's get to it. I just want to show you how I've got my geometry set up just to help us with the rigging process. So as you can see from my outliner, I've got all four wheels in separate groups, so all the geometry are in groups and they are actually center pivoted so that they can roll. So this is important to have. If you look at my other wheels, they're all center pivoted, ready to roll. And the other thing I have set up is the steering wheel. It's set up so that I can just rotate it in the Z-axis so that we can hook it up to the wheels later. And that's it, we're ready to go. So when we start rigging, it's really important to not import your actual mesh into the scene, but it's much better to reference it in. Referencing is like an external file, and what the benefits of this is that if you're using the same rig in multiple scenes, 100 scenes, and you want to update the model, you only have to do it in one single file. There's a much better practice to do. If you've seen my full series on rigging a full character, a biped character in Advanced Skeleton, I do go through this in more detail. So what we want to do is create a new scene. You can either go to File, New Scene, or we can run through the Advanced Skeleton menu. You hit your little yellow button up here and it brings up your menu. Mine's just popped up on the other screen, and you can just hit New Scene, and then we don't need to save this because I've already saved it. And now you can either go to File and then create reference or the reference editor, or you can do it through the Advanced Skeleton menu. Now the advantages of doing it just through this here is it adds it to its own layer and creates a template. So I'm going to hit reference and I'm going to choose the file that we want to reference in. It's on Maya binary at the moment, but mine's actually in an ASCII file. So I'm just going to go to my scenes to show everything. Click the file that we want to import and click reference. And what I do is import it in. There you go. You can see our geometry there, and it's automatically put it on a layer called high, and we can turn this on and off. It's already templated it for us, and if you want to see it with your textures, press the 6 key and the textures will load. It's good to have it either, if I press the 4 key you'll go wireframe, 5 key shaded mode and 6 key for your full textured mode, but it is good to have it as it set it up for us on template. It means you can't select anything by mistake, and we can see where we're going to plot our joints in. Okay, let's move on. So to rig this car, we can do it two different ways with Advanced Skeleton. It allows you to use your own joints. You can just plot your own joints and then label them and name them correctly, or you can use a template. So I'm just going to quickly show you both ways because it's just useful to know that the labels you need to put on. So I'm going to first of all, I'm going to go to A4 view. So I hit the space bar, and as you can see it brings up my top left side and front, and your 3/4 is up here, so you can see, it's good to see what you're doing here. And I'm going to use the grid again to snap to. So I'm going to, you can either go up to make sure you're on your rigging menu set, which is here, rigging, and you can go up to skeleton and then create joints. Or you can hit the button in the Advanced Skeleton menu here called add joints. So I'm going to just click this little button here, and you've got a joint size control here as well. I'm just going to slide that up so you can see the joints, they're going to be bigger. And I'm going to hit the X key again just to snap to the grid. So I'm just going to hit the X key here, and the first joint snaps to the grid here. I'm going to hit X again, and I want my sort of body joint to be something maybe around, because I want to sort of use this next joint to skin all the body geometry to, let's see, maybe we have one here for the chassis, for the frame, sorry, maybe let's put one here, and we can put one here, and then we can finish it off with another joint up here that might just be the tip that we might not use. Hit enter and you've created your joint chain. You can see this up in the top here. Now if you want to see this with your fully textured model, there is another way you can do this as well. I'm just going to untemplate it, and I'm going to hit the spacebar while I roll over my perspective view, and you can see you can't really see the joints here. If you go up and hit this little button here, it means X-ray joints, and now you can see it through. So I quite often work like this, or I might work in shaded view instead of template, so you can see what you're doing with the shaded. So I do jump back and forwards, it depends on the model and what you're doing. So I'm going to go back to A4 view, and I'm going to go back to the templated here so we can see easier in this instance. I'm just going to shrink this window down slightly. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to have some more joints that come out that we can parent the wheels to. So we want to bring these out, and we want to parent them from the body. So what you can do is you can just plot the joints where we want. Let's do this in the top view for now. It's good to sort of jump around. Oh, actually, no, I'm going to do the side view for this first joint, and I'm going to hit the joint tool again. I'm going to go in the middle of our wheel here, and as you can see, it's popped up here. And I'm going to move this joint in the top view. You see I'm working in all 4 views at the same time, and I'm going to bring this into the middle of our wheel here. That looks pretty good. And we're going to hit the Y key to repeat our last command. And if I hit now, if I hit the joint key now, you can see it won't parent it. What you could do is you could select the joint first and then go back to your joint tool, hold shift, select the joint, and then again, and you will get your joint coming out from it. Or you can do it this way. I'm going to undo what I did there, and I'm going to place a joint. I'm just showing you different ways of doing things, and you can see that I forgot to select it, but it's no trouble because you can select the first joint, select the second, and I'm just going to press P. So this is another way that you can join your joints together. And now I'm going to just check in the front view. This looks good here. There's the joint in the middle. I'm just going to move this over a bit. You can move them at this point around. And now we want to get this back, and we want to parent this to the body. So I'm going to jump to my perspective view. I'm going to select this one, and we're going to use the parent method again. I'm not going to parent it to the root. I'm going to parent it to the body. I'm just going to hit the P key, and there you go. So we've got our joint for our wheels. And now we can, instead of just drawing these all again, I'm going to jump to my top view. I'm just going to hide the grid for a second, so you can just press this button here, hide the grid. And what I'm going to do now is select the wheel joint that we made here, press Control D to duplicate, and I'm going to move it down. And as you can see, it stays, the new joint is also parented to the body. So it's a pretty useful way of doing things. And if I go back to the perspective view, there you go, you can see the joint chain. So this is one way of doing it. You can plot these out yourself, create your own bespoke joint chain. And I'm going to select the root. It's good practice to do this. It's not always necessary, but I'm now going to make sure that Advanced Skeleton knows that this is the root, and I'm going to give it an IK label. So over here under Edit, you've got IK labels. You've got your different labels that you can add to the joint. So you've got like chest, mid, hips, all for sort of human rigging as well. And I'm just going to put this one as root because we want this to be the main joint, the root joint of the whole system. And I'm just going to click add. There you go. And if I zoom in, you can see the tiny little letters there that says root. So it's got a little label on it so that Advanced Skeleton knows it's root. Now we are going to add an attribute to these joints. We need to tell these joints these are going to be wheel joints, and there is a system built into Advanced Skeleton that works out the rotations and everything for you, but it doesn't know that you want to use this as a wheel joint yet. So I'm going to select the front wheel joint, and by the way, it would have been good to name these like wheel joint, wheel front, but I'm just going to rush through this now because you can see the joint chain over here, and I'm going to select this joint, because we're going to go back and do it the templated way anyway. And now I'm going to go back to our Advanced Skeleton menu, and I'm going to scroll down to where it says attributes. Now you've got all these nice attributes here that do all sorts of things, and what we want to do is we want to tell it it's going to be a wheel. So if you select wheel and click add, it adds it. Now with this we've added an attribute, so the attribute will come up under here, and as you can see, wheel, it's on. Okay, and we're going to do the same for the back wheel. I'm going to click add, and there you go, it's on. And I'm going to name this joint body, just so that we know we're going to be using it as the body joint. And there we go. So we've got our basic joint chain there, and I'm going to run the Advanced Skeleton. Now when you've created your own joint chain, you always must select the root joint. If you don't select it, it won't run. When you use the template, you don't need to select the root joint, but let's just see what happens. Let's just run this now. So I'm going to select the root joint, and I'm going to go down to our Advanced Skeleton menu set, and I'm going to click Build Advanced Skeleton. And there you go, it's pretty quick. You get a little note here saying build complete. And I'm going to turn on I'm going to untemplate our vehicle so we can see it. I'm going to hit the 6 key. So you've got all these controls here. You've got the main control here, which you can sort of move it around. There's another control hidden inside, so we can obviously make these controls bigger. I'll show you to do this later. We're going to use this to sort of rock the car chassis back and forward. But I just want to show you how these wheels are now working. So from here, what you would do is you would skin your wheel geometry to the joints. This is now set up because we added our attribute. So let's select our wheel geometry here. We've got it referenced, so I can't select it, so I'm going to unreference it. So I'll go over to here, press the F key to zoom in, and I want the whole group, not just the tire. I'm going to select the whole group and I'm going to skin it to this joint. I'm going to select our wheel joint here. There we go. So what I'm going to do here is now I'm going to skin this. I'm going to create weight. So I'm going to go up to skin and then bind skin. I'm just going to go to the option spots because it's one sort of important setting. Make sure this is on selected joints, because otherwise you'll get other joints affecting other pieces of the geometry. And I'm going to click bind skin, and let me just move this controller and see what we got. There you go. See how easy that is? It's all set up ready for you. So I'm going to just quickly do that again. I'm going to select my geometry back here, the right group. I'm going to select this joint here, and I'm going to click bind skin because it's already set up on the right settings. Bind skin, select our main move control, and there we go. And you can even sort of rotate. And there you go. That's the basis of how we're going to set up our car rig. Now we're going to go through and complete the whole rig. We're going to add the steering wheel, steering, we're going to add dynamics as well, but I'm going to now show you how to use a template, which to me it's a bit easier to use, because if it's there you may as well use it. Okay, brand new scene. I've already referenced in the Jeep geometry and we're ready to go with the template. So over in Advanced Skeleton, you can open it from over here if you haven't already got it open. We're going to go down to body and fit, and you've got all these templates. And if you go down to vehicle and just click import, there you go. What you want to do now is scale this up to fit. So we're going to go to a 4 view as we did before. Let me just move this out the way. And let me just zoom back on all these. And what we want to do is just scale it up to sort of as good as we think it is, and then we can adjust it from there. So, you know, I want our body to be up here and our wheels. So, you know, we can move these around. It really doesn't matter. And I'm just going to bring the size of the joints down a little bit. Let me just go into the side view. And what I'm doing is I'm scaling up. I'm selecting the curve control that it gave us. So something like this would be good. I mean, this is the body, and I do want this around there, so that looks pretty good. Up to here. Okay, and now we can start moving the joints into position and into where we want them to be. So let's select the first wheel joint, and now let's go into a side view, and I'm going to move this into position in the middle of the wheel, and likewise with the other one. Let's select this, maybe go to our top view, and sort of just drag this over. Now you might be wondering how to get this exactly in the center, which is better for rotation. So there are ways of doing this. Before in the other example, I just sort of eyeballed it really. So let's do this in exact way now. Let me just go back to the perspective view and zoom out here. And let's see if we can find exactly the center of this, and there's definitely a way of doing that. Let me just unreference our geometry here, and I'm going to select just the tire will do for now. You could do it to the group. I'm just going to do the tire. So what we want to do is go up to our display, transform display, and then turn on local rotation axis, and then you want show all. And let's just see, let's just go to a wireframe mode, and there you go. It's quite small. It's popped it up in there. You can see sort of the Y, X, and Z there. Let me just zoom right in. Here it is in this area here, and that is the exact center. And as you move out, it does sort of scale up so you can see it, and we can use this to snap to. So let's go to our, well, we can stay in our perspective mode actually, and I'm going to select the joint, and you can sort of move this around here now. And what I could do now is I could actually, let me see if I can, if I hide the geometry, I think if we template it, if you template it, you do actually lose the axis to click to, so you do need to have it actually physically on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm moving this around, and I'm going to, same sort of snapping, any snapping really, like vert snapping, and we're going to use the V key this time, not the X key. The X is for the grid, and I'm just going to hold down the V key. You can see the symbol change here. I'm going to middle mouse, just gesture, and it snaps, it pops into place. And now that is in the exact center. It's really useful. So let's do the same on the front. Let's select the tire here. Let's go up to display, transform display, local rotation axes, and then let's go zoom in. I'm going to set my select tool. I'm going to just see where the joint is. It's over here. Hit the W key to move this around. Turn on our geometry, and let's just see where is our little, there it is. Sometimes we do sort of lose it. There it is. And I'm going to, and you could probably do this from a top view or something instead as well. So if I went to here, hit the 4 for a wireframe, and went to the front, you know, you can do it from here as well. It really is up to you. So I'm just moving it around, and there you go. I'm going to hold down the V key. You see the little circle come up. Middle mouse gesture, and it pops into place. And you just want to check you've got that right in all axes. There you go. So that is a really useful tip for getting something exactly in the center. I'm going to template this back on. So there you go. We've got our joints, our wheels, and our body. And you see how much quicker that was really than sort of plotting out your own joints. We're sort of done with that already. What I want to do now is I want to move on to adding extra joints in. I want to be able to control this antenna. I want to be able to make it wobble, and we're going to add dynamics and that to it later. So let's draw in some joints for the antenna. Okay, I'm going to go to a side view, and I'm going to go to our joint tool, select. I'm going to click one here, and I'm going to click one at the top to get our joint chain. Let's have a little look. I'm going to turn up the size of our joints. You can sort of, you know, scale these up and down whenever needed. I'm going to go to our select tool and just move this into place. So it's right at the bottom of our antenna there. Here you go. And let's just check the top one and move that into position. Lovely. And I'm going to name this just to be a bit neater. I'm going to call this antenna joint 01, and then just call this one at the top just something like antenna tip or something like that. Brilliant. Okay, so we've got our joint chain there, and now obviously we've only seen it in the side profile, so I imagine it will be in the middle, you see, so it won't exactly be placed at the moment. It needs to go over to our geometry, and I'm going to this time I'm going to untemplate. I want my Jeep geometry in full color at the moment, so I'm going to unreference it, and I'm going to go to full color mode, and let's just see. Let's go over here, and let's just move this over. So there we go. Probably better to do this from a front view. 6, hit the space bar to jump up. There we go. And there you go, that's nice. That's nice and in line with the antenna now. So we've got a joint chain there. But it's not connected at the moment. So let's go back up to here. I'm going to hit 4 for wireframe. Actually, I'm going to go back just so I can see what I'm doing easier. I'm going to turn on X-ray joints as well. There we go, that should make things easier to see. Let me just go back to a full color view if you want, just to see if we can work like that. Yep, we can. So now we want to parent this to our body, just like we showed you in the last demo. I'm going to select the bottom joint. So we've got our antenna joint 1 selected, and I'm going to zoom in and select this joint here as well. Let's see, this one here, and I'm going to press the P key. There we go. So we've got our joint chain. If I just hide all geometry for now, say if I hide this, you can see how our joint system is looking. So you've got your wheels here, and it veers off to your antenna over here. And now if you had a door, I don't have doors on this particular model, but you might want to sort of add a door joint over here so that you can rotate the joint and open it. You know, you can really go to town on this depending on your model. You might have bits of engine that you might want to vibrate, and the wiper blades and things like that. But we want to keep this tutorial sort of short and sweet, really, as best as we can. Now there's an important thing we want to set here at the moment. If we went to build the advanced skeleton rig now, we'd probably come up with an error. In fact, I'm just going to save what we're doing and we're going to demonstrate this. So let's go save scene as. Okay, so we've saved that now, and I'm going to sort of run advanced skeleton just to show you, see if this error comes up now. And let's just run let's run advanced skeleton here. Let's go down to build advanced skeleton, and let's see what happens. There you go. So it comes up with this: found no valid items to add the attribute to. So I'm going to undo that. As you can see, the reason I saved it is because you do end up, if it does error out, you do end up with the joint sort of messed up. So you need to go back to your save scene. And we're back to our save scene, so it's always good to save in stages. Save as like version 1 before, you can save one before you build, after you build. But the beauty about advanced skeleton is that you can, hit your sort of toggle advanced fit button, which I'll show you in a minute, and move joints around. But just before you test things, it is good to save in different stages. So the reason it errored out is because we do need to add an attribute, because the way advanced skeleton works is it always mirrors and flips anything that you've got, and if you on one side to the other. If you don't want it to flip, you have to tell it so. So here I'm going to select our antenna joint, and I'm going to go up to our attributes, and I'm going to add a no mirror, and I'm going to click add. And there you go, and it's going to tell advanced skeleton not to mirror this to the other side. We don't want to, and that's why it was erroring out. So now let's just check we've got everything we want where we want it. And now yep, that looks good. So now let's build well, actually let's save this quickly. File save, and then run advanced skeleton. And there you go, build complete. It builds without any errors at all. Now some of these curves are pretty massive, and we can edit them down. First of all, you'll see that this one is for our antenna, and the curve is massive. So you can either go right click, control vertex, and just sort of select them and shrink them down, or you can use the advanced skeleton. I'll just select this again. Did you see what happened there? Because I've got joint selected. Joints take preference, so if I want to select the vertices, I can. But if I do a group drag selection, it selects the joints. So you would either have to go up to here, turn off joint selection, then you can select it quite happily and scale your curve down. You can do that and reshape. And another good method is you just select the curve, you go down to your control curves menu, and you can, over here you can color them, scale them, all sorts of stuff. So you can color them differently left and right, or for different components. So I'm going to scale this right down. I'm going to say I want to scale this maybe 0.2 and go scale, and it just pops down. There you go. And you can even give it a different color if you want. I mean, it's quite a simple rig this, you don't need to for now. I'm going to go, let's say, color this yellow, for example, and I'm going to choose, oh, there you go. So I've got it on FK and I've got it on right. So you want to just, you've got lots of options here. You want to do it just for selected, and I do set color, and there you go, and now it's yellow. So it's just something useful if you want to do that. If you want to color on a much more complicated rig, it is really good to be able to color code your rigs and get them down to sort of a real fine polishing. Okay, so now I want to sort of this is our body controller here, and it's I want to reshape this one. So I'm not just going to scale it. I'm going to show the control vertices, and I'm going to select these two in the middle, and I'm going to bring them in to make it more square shape. And this one here. There you go, and we can sort of helps us to differentiate the sort of different controls. So this one is going to be, that we can move all our body around and rotate it and use it as for the suspension. Okay, let's start hooking everything up, shall we? So we're going to start as we did before, start with the wheels. So let's select all the geometry. Oh, before we do anything, I can't actually select joints, because if you remember, we turned the joint selection off earlier on. So just select this button back on, and now I'm going to go over and start with this front wheel. So select the whole group node. I'm not selecting the separate parts, well you can do, but I'm going to select just the group node to make my life easier. And then I'm going to shift, select, hold the, to make sure we've got the joint, and then I'm going to go to skin, bind skin, and don't forget, as before, just check you're on selected joints and bind skin. Let's just check this is working as we go through so that we can see mistakes as they happen. That's working fine. I'm going to undo this, and then we're just going to move on and quickly do the other wheels. So I'm going to select this group here, select the joint, skin, bind skin. I'm going to select this geometry here, and then this joint, again, skin, bind skin, and you could probably hit the G key, which repeats the last command, but I just want to, you know, so you learn everything where the menu is. Last piece of geometry, wheel, select the joint, skin, bind skin. Let's check all our wheels are working and rolling correctly. There we go. Check the rotation. There we go, easy as that. Okay, that's the wheels done. So now let's skin all our body geometry. I do have all the geometry in one group, so you could, if you wanted to, you could actually just probably parent this to the body joint node if you want. But I'm actually gonna skin everything as well. I think it might be a bit cleaner at the moment. So I'm going to select all my body geometry. I'm going to select our body joint. And I'm just looking up here at the moment with our antenna because we do want to skin that separately. So I'm actually going to, deselect this. I'm going to hide my joints. I'm going to go show none, show polygons. And I'm going to go to a side view just so I can see what I'm doing. Oh, then you have to set that again. So let's hide this, show none, show polygons. I'm going to hit the 6 key so we can see what we're doing, and I'm just basically going to select everything at the top, deselect the bottom, and just deselect the antenna. And let's just check that we've got everything. Yep, there we go. And I also don't want the steering wheel selected because we're going to use that to control the wheels later. So let's just jump back to a perspective view. Just select, check I've got everything selected properly. Yeah, looks good to me. And you can also select things in the outline if you need. I tend to do a mixture of both. I'm going to close it up. Okay, now we're good to go. So now we're going to turn back on joints, show joints, and I'm going to go in and select our body joint here, and I'm going to go to skin, bind skin, and give it a second because it's going to go through all those pieces of geometry. Now let's turn on the curves again, show NURBS curves. And I'm going to, there we go. Everything's going with it. And now we've got all this bottom frame stuff. And I keep going up to this menu to go show curves. You can obviously put them on different layers. You can even go to set up a hotkey as well under your, you can also go hide the deformation system at any time you want. And you can also put that on a hotkey as well. I just like to keep it open, just as easy for me. Okay, so let's now get the frame, and I've got all the frame in a group, so I can select that here. Let's go up to our geometry, and I can find our base frame. There we go, so that's our frame there. I've left this wheel axle out in case we want to animate it going across. This is just a basic rig for now, it's not too detailed, but let's now skin this to, we could have perhaps had another joint in here, but let's see how it works just going straight to the root joint for now. You can always amend these things. Skin, bind skin. There we go, it's working quite well. And then you've got this front wheel axle here, which I said we've got this group separated here. So I'm going to select this piece. There's the group, so we now can skin this to probably to the root joint for now as well. We might want to be able to animate this. So I'm just trying to think what the best way to do this. We could either we could just parent this. We could sort of parent it to the to the other joint. So let's just skin it for now, and then we can change it later. Skin, bind skin. There we go. So that's everything. So we just move this forward. You can see the wheels moving. And now if we select these, you can turn the wheels here as well. And obviously we need to set up some sort of turning system for that as well. And now I'm going to add some joints in so that we can make the antenna bend. At the moment we've got one single joint, so it doesn't bend at all here. So I'm going to show you how to set up a really cool thing in Advanced Skeleton called in-between joints, so that's all processed from one control. Select our joint and then go over to attributes over here. Let's go back to our Advanced Skeleton menu, which is over here, over our attributes. And over here we have something called in between joints. Let's have a look. There we are at the top, sorry. Now, before we do this, you don't want to add them here. We need to go to toggle advanced mode. If I did this here, then when you rebuild the skeleton, because we need to rebuild it to get these to appear, it wouldn't work. So this is one key thing to remember. So what we're going to do is go down to our build menu. I'm going to save this where we are at the moment so we don't lose our progress. And I'm going to hit toggle fit advanced. What this does is it goes back to the original mesh. You can see this. If I hide polygons at the moment, you can see it's gone back to our original mesh. So you can now move joints around and then hit rebuild. This is the advantage of using advanced skeleton. It's really useful. So now we're in a toggle at fit mode. I'm going to select the joint here and I'm going to go back up to our attributes and I'm going to go down to in between. I'm going to hit add. There you go. Over here you've got an attribute saying in between joints. Now let's pump this up to something like, let's do 10. Okay. And now let's hit rebuild as the skeleton, and it's going to say, do you want to go to the build pose and proceed? Because something's moved, we're not quite in the build pose, so it's always good to do this. Go to the build pose, and there you go. It's going to run through it, and can you see what it's done there? It's added those 10 joints in. But the lovely thing about it is everything is now processed through one controller. It sort of staggers the weight. Look at that. So we could have set this up where we have a controller on each and every one, but here you're sort of you've got this lovely clean arch, and it's just cleaner. It's less heavy, and now then we can add dynamics to this to get it to work well. So now let's turn on our polygons. There we go. So now we're going to skin this to our new joint. So we need to select all these joints and then our geometry. So you could. Let's see, select a joint in here just to make selection easier. You could hit the F key, and then what I could do is I could close this down and I could hold the shift key and click, and you'll get all of them together. That's a good way of opening, cascading opening your whatever you've got in your outliner. I'm going to select the top one, shift select to the antenna tip joint, and then I'm going to select shift select our geometry. Now we can go skin, bind skin. And now, when I rotate this, there we go. How nice is that? And if I go here, we can bend this any way we want. And it's all done through one controller. If I reset the rotations up here. And again, this will all be part of the build pose. So the build pose basically puts it back into the default position. So if I move this, I've rotated this, I've moved this out the way. All you need to do is go to build pose. Boom, you're reset at 0. There we go. So that is how to set all those main things up. Let's move on to adding dynamics. So we're going to make this antenna bendy, and we're also going to add dynamics to the body chassis so that when we move, it's got a bit of overlap, a bit of spring, so it helps us with the animation to get a much more realistic look. Okay, let's start by adding some dynamics to this antenna to get a nice little bounce as it moves, automatically animated for us. So luckily, Advanced Skeleton has built-in dynamics to make everything easy for us. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the panel, which is up here, the little sort of human icon. Click this to open up our window, and I'm going to just select the control that we want to add our dynamics to, and go up to Dynamics and Add to Selected, and it really is as easy as that. Now to see what's happening and to actually see the effect this is having, we can use something called interactive playback. You can get this traditionally from the effects menu and then under solvers, but luckily Advanced Skeleton has it a sort of shortcut to it built in here. And what we do is we need to have more frames along the bottom to be able to get this to see this to work. So I'm just going to put something like 1,000 in just so we can see it. I'm going to move back a bit and go to Dynamics and then Interactive Playback, and I'm just going to move our Jeep to see the effect. And there you go, you can see it wobbling already. It's a bit spaghetti-ish, so what we want to do is sort of change up some of the settings. So I'm just going to click stop on the interactive playback and go back to the first frame and make sure our Jeep is set to 0 all the time. Okay, and I'm just going to select our controller and go over here, and here you'll see the settings. You've got blend, base goal, tip goal, and conserve. So we want to keep the base goal at 1, so the base is actually solid, and the blend at 1. The blend will blend between none of the dynamics and your dynamics. So it's quite spaghetti-like at the moment. So we can add some more conserve in. We might be able to say push this right up to 0.9, and maybe the tip goal, so that sort of how much strength it's going to have in the tip, this final position. So let's put this up to something like 0.8, and you'll have to play around with these settings because every case is different. And then go to dynamics, interactive playback, and just try this again. Just move this back and forward. There we go. That's much springier. I'm just going to hide the joints, show joints so we can see this in action, and just move this again. Yeah, it's a nice little subtle sort of spring, and you can make this as soft or as springy as you want, and it works in all directions. So if I did this, it would shake. There you go. Yeah, that's nice and subtle. That's a good effect. So now let's add dynamics to the body. So exactly the same again. Let's reset our controller back to 0, and we're just going to select our body controller, go up to dynamics and add to selected, and let's give this a try just to see what we've got with the default settings. Let's go select our controller, go back to the first frame, dynamics, interactive playback, and let's just see what we've got. Okay, and you can see at the moment, if I let go, you get this nice sort of wobble, but it's sort of stuttering a bit. I think this is a little bit of a problem with the interactive playback. I mean, you can see it, you can see the sort of strength we've got, but you get this sort of popping. And sometimes, you know, it might be sort of too much. I don't know. There might be something, you know, in Maya. You can see what you're doing, but I'm just going to show you something else you can do to also get a good interpretation of how your dynamics is looking. If I just stop this again, and I'm going to bring the frame range down to something like 50, and this time I'm just going to add a few keys instead. So you can do it this way. So let's bring this back to 0. And I'm going to jump forward sort of 10 frames and just sort of hit Shift W, or just go up to right click and just add your key. Let's move it up, say 10 frames, and let's move it up, and then another 10 frames. Let's move it just back a little bit, and then up to here. Let's move it back to the first frame, and then just simply hit play. Let's just see what we got. There we go. So you get a good interpretation of how your dynamics is feeling on the chassis. So it's a bit wobbly for now. I mean, it looks quite good. It's quite good fun, but it's a bit too wobbly. So let's just change the settings up. I'm just going to select the controller. Let's see what we've got. We've got conserve down here. I'm going to change the tip goal. Sometimes the tip doesn't have any effect, but it does hit on this one because we do have a 2-joint chain. So if I just change this up to say something like 0.8, and again, let's take the conserver. We do want it, you don't want a wobbly, springy car too much. I mean, you might want that. Let's just see a little look. There we go. That's really nice. Lovely. Let's just have a little look from here. There we go. So you've got really realistic sort of dynamics, and it's just been made so easy with the advanced skeleton tools. You've got a little subtle animation, in the antenna, and the body's looking great. So when that's going over ground and stuff, that will look really nice. Okay, this is brilliant. So let's now move on to. I want to show you a really good way of hooking everything up so that we can animate the wheels turning with the steering wheel. Okay, so let's create a wheel turning system. At the moment, the controls to turn the wheels are here, these little curves here. So you can just rotate them by hand. But if you want to rotate them both at the same time, what you'll notice is that they rotate in opposite ways. So let's get something quicker and easier, and also let's do it all in one control where we can actually turn this steering wheel as well. So I'm going to introduce you to something called set driven keys, which are so powerful and so useful. I will actually be releasing another tutorial at some point with a much more detailed explanation on them. So I'm going to start with creating an attribute. And we can put attributes on anything, on curves, on objects, and I'm going to put it on this one here because we probably won't use this root control to animate much. I'm not going to put it on the body control because we've, you know, you might add rotational keys and everything, so you want to sort of get the keyframes onto something that's not used much. You can even just create, you know, a locator or just any curve to attach this if you want, but I'm going to put it on the root control for now. So if you select the root control or your curve of choice, and we're going to go to edit, and then we're going to go to add attribute, and it's going to bring up this attribute window, and I'm going to give this a name, and I'm going to call this steering. Okay, and I'm going to give this a minimum value of -1 and a maximum value of 1 and a default value of 0, which is in the middle. So this will be our range of our steering, and I'm going to click OK, and you'll see this pop up over here. So now we've got this attribute. It doesn't do anything at the moment. If I click and middle mouse drag, you can see you can see the numbers going up and down, but obviously we haven't hooked it up to anything yet. So let's hook this up to make our wheels turn. So we are going to go to our animation menu set, and we want to bring up our keys, and then set driven key, and set and bring up our options box, and this is where we create all our set driven keys. I'm just going to close down the advanced skeleton window for now to get that out of the way. So what we're going to do is we want to load our driver with set driven keys. The attributes of one object can control the attributes of another object. This is how they work. You can use them to control the rotation, scales, movement, transforms, anything. So we're going to load the driver. I've selected over here steering, and I'm going to click load selectors driver, and you'll see it brings up the root control, and if I scroll down, here's our steering. Okay, and now I want to control the wheel controls, and we're going to do one at a time because we need them to go opposite ways. Let's just have a little look. So we're going to select, well actually let's try and do them both at the same time. So what we want to do is we want to select our controls, and then select load driven. So we have both our driven objects here, and I'm going to select our oh, we don't want our roots, so let's just do that again. Let's just see if we can get rid of, it looks like we had the root control selected, and select load driven. There we go. So that's just how you can, we obviously had this one still selected plus these, so we only want these two. And what we're going to do is we want to access the rotation, the Y rotation. Okay, so our steering is set to 0, and I'm going to select the rotate Y, and I'm going to select key, and I've made a key. So I've told it when the steering of our here is at 0, well actually it was at 1, so let's put it at 0, so it's in the middle, and press key again. And now I've told it to be, when it's at 0, for the rotation of these wheels to be also be at 0. Now I'm going to go up to our steering. I'm going to set this to, I'm going to start with the left side, so we're going to go -1, and if you imagine, I want them to rotate this way and this way. So -1 we're going to go this way, over 1 we're going to go this way. So now let's rotate these in the direction we want. So we want rotate Y this way. Let's go for something quite large like 45. We'll probably never use that much, and this one will be -45 because it rotates in the opposite way. So now we have set our steering to -1, and we've set the rotation of our wheels to 45 degrees each. Now I'm going to hit the key again, and it's now set another key. So now if we go to our steering attribute, let's set this to 0, and you can see it reset, and then I'm going to drive up to -1, and there you go. This now controls from 0 to -1, controls the left steering. So now let's go the other way. Let's go 1, and it goes back to 0. Now let's rotate these again out to, I'm going to do this one to 45 degrees the other way. So that would be -45. And I'm going to do this one would be 45. And our steering, just check that was on 1. And now we've selected our steering, we've selected the rotate Y. I'm going to hit key again, and there you go. That's it. We've now set a steering attribute that when I middle mouse and drag, it rotates our wheels in one go. They're so powerful, so useful. So let's set this back to 0. And now let's do something pretty cool. Let's add in our steering wheel as well. You can keep adding to this. You know, you can add other attributes as well. Let me just show you how this steering wheel is set up. Let me select it here and we'll zoom in on it. If you can notice that it's actually rotated back on the X, but it is at 0, 0, 0 over here. This is because I actually have it in an empty group node. If I press the up arrow, you'll see that it gets to its parent constraint group. And I'll go over the outliner here, press the F key to zoom in on it, and here you can see it. It's the steering wheel within an empty group called constraint. Now the reason I've done this is because it allows me to have it at 0, 0, 0 and rotate on the Z axis, and it only updates in the Z. Now if I had this in, if I say didn't have a constraint group, so I'm just going to animate the constraint group, you can see this is rotated at X. Now if I rotate this, you can see all three values are changing. This is because it sort of tries to prevent what's called like a gimbal lock. So if I try to rotate this just on the Z alone, watch what happens to the steering wheel. You see, it doesn't rotate straight. So it's just something to point out. This is the way you would set this sort of thing up. It's good to have empty constraint group nodes that then we will constrain back to the main body to move along with it. So I just wanted to point that out just in case you get these weird rotations. Okay, so now we can add this to our setup. So what we want is we want the driven to now be the steering wheel within the constraint group. And so let's load this as the driven, and we want this at rotate Z. We want to affect the rotate Z, and let's check the steering. As we can see, the wheels are straight, is set to 0. So I'm going to set a key, and now we're going to set, just as we did for the wheels, I'm going to set the steering to -1. There you go, the wheels turn, and what we want is we want the steering wheel to turn this way. Let's go say -45, just like we did with the wheels. Or you can do it further if you want more turn, or you can edit this afterwards. I'm going to hit key, and then we're going to put the steering up to 1 the other way, and we're going to rotate this the other way, 45, and press key. And there you go, that's it, we've done it. So I'm going to select the steering attribute, and let's just see. So when I turn this, you can see the wheels are turning and the steering's turning. So all on one attribute, we've set up this lovely system to make things easier for us to animate. And if you want to take this further, maybe we could add in this sort of this shaft along the bottom. You know, your geometry might be different, but it would be good to sort of get this sort of moving across with it when it turns as well. That's very simple to add, just like we've done the rest of it. You would put that in, and it would be the instead of the rotate, it would be the move on the translate X. So if you wanted to add that in, we would say load driven, and we've loaded our axle group into the set driven key attribute editor, and then we would choose its translate X. There we go. So we've got our steering set to -1, well, at the moment. So let's just quickly put this back to 0, and our axle group is in the middle, so we would set a key and then change our steering to -1. Let's go this way first and move our axle group over this way a bit in X. Let's say 1.5 is good. 1.5, and we would say key and then change our steering just as we did before to 1 the other way, and get our axle group at the front, and it would go the other way now, which would be this way, and so that's -1.5, and set key again, and there we go, easy as that. Let's test it out. Here you go, you can see it moving. There you go, pretty cool, huh? So you can see how the set-driven keys are really powerful. You can just add as many attributes as you want. You might have bits of engine that are moving, or little dials, or anything you want there. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed that and you can see how easy it is to create a simple vehicle rig with Advanced Skeleton. You could use it for cars, even skateboards, trucks, whatever you want. If you got value out of this video, if you could leave a like and subscribe for more free tutorials every month, and come and share your work in our new private Facebook group, and I'll see you next time.